With tablets, the mid-range segment is currently very competitive. The most exciting models are the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 FE, the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro, and of course the Apple iPad 11. Which of these three is better for whom? That's exactly what you will learn in this comparison. A quick word on prices. It varies a lot by market, of course, but usually all three cost between $350 and $400. We'll begin the comparison with design and build quality. All three feel very high quality and all three have an aluminum body with clean transitions to the display. The iPad 11 is slightly thicker but also slightly lighter than the other two. But roughly speaking, the dimensions are very similar. The S10 FE is the only tablet in this price range that is protected against water and dust according to IP68. A useful, unique feature. I also like that all three have a fingerprint reader in the power button and it works very reliably in each case. None of them have a headphone jack and only Samsung includes a microSD card slot. The S10 FE, however, is the only one that cannot be connected to external monitors. That's possible with both Xiaomi and Apple. The Pad 7 Pro has the fastest USB 3.2 Gen 1 port, the other two are USB 2.0. Even though all three tablets are about the same size, there are small differences in the displays and also in the aspect ratios. The iPad 11 is 11 inches in size and has a resolution of 2360 by 1640 pixels, and the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro measures 11.2 inches with 3200 by 2136 pixels. The S10 FE has a 10.9-inch display with 2304 by 1440 pixels. So the Xiaomi is by far the sharpest and even supports up to 144 Hz. Samsung only reaches 90 Hz and Apple offers only 60. That one is also the darkest with 500 nits, followed by up to 800 nits of peak brightness on both Xiaomi and Samsung. At least that's what the specs say. In real life, the iPad is at least just as bright, sometimes even looks brighter, and has slightly better colors, also with HDR content. However, the iPad is the only one where the display is not laminated, so there's an air gap visible between the IPS panel and the touchscreen. That bothers me, and also the 60 Hz bother me, but many won't notice it. In the end, you have to decide what's more important to you. Sharp resolution, high refresh rate, or better colors. A big advantage of the iPad 11 is the wide range of accessories from third-party manufacturers. This also includes the stylus, keyboard cover, and case from our sponsor AIP. What I like best is the iPad Magnetics Keyboard 2 case. The tablet is protected from all sides, which is not the case with the official one. At the top, there's space for the stylus. And on the back, there's a 135-degree foldable stand, which allows you to set it up even without the keyboard. The keyboard connects using Bluetooth. This lets you place the iPad on the small table in a train or plane and write with the keyboard on your lap. The keyboard is very comfortable, high quality, and it's fun to type on. It has backlighting where you can choose between 7 colors. There are also shortcuts built in, like switching between the highlighter and the eraser. A much cheaper alternative to the Apple Pencil is the AIP Pencil 2. It works not only with the iPad 11, but also with the iPad 10, iPad mini 6 and 7, as well as the iPad Air and Pro tablets with Pencil 2 support. With the stylus, you can write by hand or draw, and as usual, your palm is ignored, and it also detects when you tilt the pen slightly. That's useful for drawing shadows. The pencil is charged using USB-C. Especially for students, I also find the AIP Slim tablet bag useful. Here, you can store not just the iPad, but also other documents, and the tablet fits inside even with the keyboard cover attached. Alternatively, you can also use the cover from AIP. It also protects the iPad from all sides and offers space for the stylus. You can remove the front magnetically and even place the tablet upright, in many different angles. Next to it, there's also space for your smartphone. Definitely check out the iPad accessories from AIP. You can find the links in the description. With the speakers, there's a clear winner, Samsung. They sound a bit more pleasant than the iPad 11, have more bass, and are slightly louder. The worst ones are from Xiaomi. In direct comparison, they sound a bit tinny. While Samsung has the best speakers, it performs the worst in our performance test. Inside sits an Exynos 1580 chip with 8GB to 12GB RAM and 128 to 256GB of storage. The iPad 11 has an Apple A16 with 6GB RAM and 128 to 512GB storage. Xiaomi gives us a Snapdragon 8S Gen 3 with 8GB to 12GB RAM and 128 to 512GB storage. Only Samsung and Apple can be bought with 5G. Our Geekbench 6 benchmark comparison clearly shows that the S10FE is slower than the other two. CPU performance is strongest on the iPad 11. It's also interesting that the iPad 11 has better graphics scores than Geekbench, but in the 3D Mark comparison, the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro leads. Our gaming test confirms again that the S10FE is the weakest. In benchmarks, it's not that much worse, but many games are not optimized for Exynos chips, and that's why it performs a bit worse in reality than in benchmarks. Fortnite only runs really smoothly on medium settings and 50% 3D resolution. That works well, but doesn't look great. On the Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro, you can choose much higher graphics and it runs smoothly. On the iPad 11, you can only select medium settings, but the graphics look much better than on the Xiaomi. The Fortnite settings differ from platform to platform. In the end, the iPad 11 and Xiaomi Pad 7 Pro are both good gaming tablets. The iPad 11 has slightly better graphics in almost all games, but Xiaomi offers important features for gamers like a 144Hz display. We clearly do not recommend the Samsung as a gaming tablet. But the Samsung is an excellent tablet if you want one with a really good stylus. Regarding this, the Galaxy Tab S10FE is the test winner in the mid-range. Not only is the S Pen included, but it also works almost as well as with the most expensive Galaxy Tab S10 Ultra. So for handwritten notes and drawing, the S10FE is great and really good. That's also because Samsung has great software support for the pen. Apple is also great in terms of software, but the Apple Pencil is quite a bit more expensive, and due to the non-laminated display, there's that air gap. When you touch the display with the stylus, it looks like you are not actually touching it. That's not a problem when writing, but if you want to draw very precisely, it's annoying. The Xiaomi Focus Pen is a pretty good stylus and almost as good as the S Pen. But the software isn't on the same level as from Apple and Samsung. In terms of software in general, the S10FE and iPad 11 do better than the Xiaomi. The latter doesn't have a good desktop or multitasking mode. Sometimes apps don't feel polished, and especially the update policy is worse. The Pad 7 Pro is supposed to get only 2 major version updates from Android 15 to 17 and security patches until 2031. Samsung promises Android and security updates for 7 years on the S10FE. Apple never exactly says how long their tablets will stay up to date, but in our experience it's very long. It's just a shame that due to the 6GB RAM, Apple Intelligence and Stage Manager are not supported. On the other hand, the selection of tablet optimized apps is larger than on Android. For example, not only is Adobe Photoshop available, but also many good alternatives. In our battery test, LCD iPads always do poorly. This one reaches 5 hours, while the Pad 7 Pro gets 7.5 hours and the S10FE manages 8.5. For this test, we always play an HD YouTube video in a loop at max brightness. In the end, you have to decide for yourself which tablet suits you best, of course. You've seen all three have pros and cons. The S10FE has the best stylus, the iPad 11 the better gaming performance, but Xiaomi offers a sharper and smoother display. If you're not sure which of the three tablets suits you, I recommend the iPad 11. I know I'll get criticized for this in the comments, but you can't go wrong with an iPad. It has strong performance, will get software updates for a very long time, the ecosystem of good apps and accessories is bigger, and you will be able to reset it later for more money. We reviewed all three tablets in detail, and you can find the reviews here on the channel and on mynexttablet.com.